What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast, the Staples Show, week one of the NFL season. Bills versus Ravens. The Bills began preparation for that game in Orchard Park today. We'll have all of your updates from practice and more. I got a chance to talk to Josh Allen and Dorian Strong, who obviously with the situation at cornerback is going to be somebody that comes into focus if he ends up having to play on Sunday. Very impressed with him. We'll get into that conversation in a little while. What's the Bills injury situation? We'll take a quick look at the Ravens injury situation. Ryan, there's a lot to get to on this Wednesday night edition.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously Friday, the picture becomes a little bit clearer in terms of designations and statuses for the game. But both teams are dealing with some pretty significant injuries right now.
So let's start off with the latest news, and that has to be the inclusion of Keon Coleman, Bill's second-year wide receiver, on the injury report today, dealing with a groin injury. And it's interesting. The last season, it was the wrist. Remember, everybody seemed to be going down with the wrist. On this injury report, there's three guys with the designation of groin. So you got Keon Coleman. We learned that it was Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford, both dealing with groin injuries as well. The Coleman one is interesting because this isn't somebody that anybody really knew about going into the day. Sean McDermott was asked about multiple players before practice today. He didn't mention Keon Coleman, but he also said, who do you want to know about? So he wasn't really in the information offering mood, if you will. We get out to the practice field. It didn't look like Keon Coleman was restricted in any way. He was out there going through all of the processes of practice. He's listed on there with a groin. You're wondering if that occurred during practice. Maybe it's something that he brought into the day that maybe he tweaked last week, and we just didn't know about it because nobody asked about it. He was moving around pretty good after practice. I saw him doing a couple different things after practice, some Bills social media stuff and walking around, joking around. He looked like he was in good spirits. So this is something we'll have to track as we go throughout the week. But if Keon Coleman can't play, Ryan, for some reason, or isn't 100%, that is a significant development here, especially coming off of the summer that he just had. Yeah,
massive. You mentioned the summer he just had, unbelievable training camp preseason, making a ton of big plays for this team. And also massive because, while Khalil Shakir looks like he's on track to play this week, he also missed significant time with an injury, and he's going to be back. And playing or not, I don't think he'll be at 100% on Sunday. So you'd be potentially down one receiver, have this your star of the summer potentially at less than 100%. Whether he plays or not, this is certainly something worth tracking.
The wide receiver situation that you mentioned there, I feel like it is looking up outside of this kind of pop-up here on Wednesday. You mentioned Khalil Shakir. Sean McDermott said he was going to be limited. He ends up being full today, and I was watching him pretty closely during warm-ups, and I thought he was getting in and out of his breaks really well. He looked explosive. It looked like all of the restrictions that come with that high ankle sprain from earlier in the summer, he's moved past a lot of that. So I think he's in a spot this week to get into this game and have a really big impact. And I believe it was against the Ravens last year. It might have been against the Chiefs. Either way, he makes so many big-time plays that you almost take his presence for granted and what he means to this offense. Him being at 100%, to me, out of all of the offensive question marks that you might pull up, that, to me, leading into this opener was a big storyline because of how important he is to Josh Allen and the continuity of this offense.
Yeah, he's huge for this team. He's not a fantasy producer because I've done my fair share of drafts, and he's in about the right spot there. But he is so important to this team. He's someone that Josh Allen trusts more than I would say anyone, and that's impressive considering how long Dawson Knox has been on this team, his relationship with Kincaid the last few years, some of the other weapons that he has at his disposal. Shakir is the one guy that if he has a need to have it type of moment, he's going to throw in his direction if at all possible because Shakir's hands are so solid. The yards after the catch because of his ability to maintain balance and bounce off the defenders. So 90%, 100%, if he's anywhere in that range, it's a massive win for the Bills.
I'm also interested to see that matchup specifically between Shakir and Marlon Humphrey, who, I mean, he's one of those guys that when you think about slot cornerbacks in the league, a lot of times one of the first guys you mention is Marlon Humphrey, but he's not getting any younger. This could be a place where, at 29 years old, he's probably fresh. He probably comes out there and makes some really good plays, but it's good on good. It is what you expect for in these big time games with elite offenses, playmakers on the defensive side. Get Khalil Shakir in space against Humphrey and get your popcorn out.
And you can say fresh, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you can also say that this is going to be something where he doesn't have necessarily a ton of reps in against other opposition, so that could also benefit Buffalo. So, good on good for sure, but in week one, a lot can happen because of the limited reps that a lot of star players have over the course of the summer.
Another wide receiver update here, Curtis Samuel, who missed time last week. And everybody was like, wait, he's on the injury report again. It wasn't an injury. He was excused from practice last Wednesday for personal reasons. Sean McDermott said it's positive personal reasons. Curtis Samuel apparently didn't want to get into those today, but he was back. Sean McDermott said he's ready to go. And honestly, depending on what's going on with Keon Coleman, if he for some reason can't go, I feel like that all of a sudden, for a guy that has not been a part of the conversation much all summer, really could potentially elevate Curtis Samuel. And listen, he's made plays in spots before. I mean, when Keon Coleman went down last season, I thought that's when we really started to see Samuel come on, and he made some big plays in a couple of different games, none bigger than maybe that big touchdown against the Denver Broncos in the wild card round. But in terms of the wide receiver room as a whole, outside of this Keon Coleman situation, they're very healthy.
Yeah, and I'd be hesitant to have to count on Samuel. I know having him healthy is a good thing. He does have big playability. He made a big play against Denver in the playoffs, had a nice regular season moment against the Chiefs. Flashed at times, but coming off of a summer where he hardly played, practice, etc., I would be a bit worried if he was someone that you had to count on in a week one matchup against a team as good as the Baltimore Ravens.
If you are watching on YouTube right now, we really appreciate that. Make sure that you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We are brought to you by Amtrak. And if you're traveling within New York State, you want to make sure before you book any kind of travel plans, you check out Amtrak.com, because they have you covered with some of the most affordable options when it comes to traveling across New York State. If you're going from anywhere from Buffalo to New York City, you could check out their map and see they have stops in Rochester, Utica, Syracuse, Poughkeepsie. So many really good deals going on. No middle seats, free Wi-Fi, and kids ride 50% off. Head over to Amtrak.com today. Check it out. Get your travel plans all set up. Where do you want to go next, Ryan?
Yeah, let's go into a little bit of the injuries on the Baltimore Ravens side, Matt, because there was a big one today in that Isaiah Likely. We have learned that he is not expected to play against the Bills. And, he's not the first player you think of when you consider the Ravens offense. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, but he's an emerging star on this team. He had career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns last year, and he was their top receiver in the divisional round. Knowing he's not suiting up or not expected to suit up, I feel like is massive news that needs to be discussed.
It definitely is. And what I think it does more than anything is changes what I think the Ravens might present from a scheme and personnel perspective, because they run so many three. Why'd you laugh? Sorry.
Oh, because I thought you were stumbling over yours, but I think you were frozen on my end. So then I said it and you were already saying it at the same time.
I'm like, Ryan, I did not just drop a dad joke there. What was so funny about those comments? But no, I'm just kidding. That was funny. That was just a little bit of a glitch. They run a lot of 3 tight end sets. And I know I was talking to Jeff Zerbiak from The Athletic yesterday, and he really mentioned how much they like and believe in Charlie Kolar, who is the 3rd string tight end. But even with him and Mark Andrews, that still puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage because of how much they do run 13. And then you throw into the mix maybe potentially not having Patrick Ricard, who didn't practice today, and now it maybe changes the game plan. So now it affects more than just the passing game, Ryan, because like when you get that heavy personnel package out there and you have Derrick Henry to deal with, it changes the way that you defensively scheme against them. So I'm very interested to see if those two guys can't play, and even if it's just Likely, Does that mean that they go a little bit more 3 wide receivers? They go 4 wide receivers at times. They try to dip into their depth there. Tylan Wallace had himself a nice catch or 2 against the Bills in the playoffs earlier this year. But it could just completely change the chess match between Bobby Babich and the Baltimore Ravens offensive play callers.
Yeah, it gives the Bills a chance to pivot in terms of, okay, we know he's not playing in this game, so we can adjust our thought process on what they might do. And, Patrick Ricard is another one that you mentioned that might be out in this matchup. If he's out as well, it really changes their ability to run the ball. And don't get me wrong, Derrick Henry, I don't care if you're going with a heavy package, if you're just going with a straightforward deal. He is an animal to bring down. He is unbelievable. He can get a lot of tough yards for you, especially in week 1 when he is fresh. But it will take away from their blocking, creating lanes. This is something worth monitoring at the fullback position and knowing Likely's out. This is certainly going to hurt them from an offensive perspective.
I don't care who's not out there on either side. I think the biggest factor, is Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen being available in this game. And I think they'll find a way to make plays. I do like the fact for the Bills that they're pretty healthy outside of the cornerback situation. We can get into that a little bit now. Up front, they're going to have pretty much all the expected contributors available outside of Dwayne Carter. And his role, I think, was definitely something that was going to be up for discussion heading into the first week. Is he active? If he's active, how much does he play? There's all those things that go into the conversation. But in terms of the cornerback spot, I was really impressed with Dorian Strong today. I want to get into this conversation. He talked to the media for about 8 minutes, and you're a rookie 6th-round draft pick. You're coming off the field after your first practice getting ready for the Ravens, and this is your first potential, not only playing time in the NFL, but potentially start if Tre'Davious White can't go. He didn't practice today. We found out it was a groin injury. Christian Benford was out there. He was out there in a limited capacity, but I think he's definitely on track to play. He was in full uniform with pads and everything like that. So you look at Dorian Strong and what kind of place he's at and able to kind of step up into this role. And the thing that I was so impressed about was the moment didn't seem too big for him. I mean, he was asked about playing against Lamar and Derrick Henry, and he's like, it's pretty dope. I mean, he was relaxed about it. He was just almost embracing the opportunity if his number is called. And he talked about a lot about his growth over the course of this off-season and preseason training camp. He's somebody that I was pretty hard on early in training camp. And I think as we've gone along, it's looked like he's gotten more and more comfortable. And it's very similar to the Christian Benford story, isn't it, Ryan? I mean, you have Kyer Elam there, and Benford ends up almost beating him out. And because he beat him out, they split time early on. The one difference here is if Strong has to start and play the entire game, probably won't be a rotation situation. He might be out there for the whole game.
Right. And a few weeks ago, a month ago, I was sitting here saying, well, don't expect this to be a Christian Benford situation because you had Trey White. You knew that. There was the unknown certainty or the unknown about where Maxwell Hairston was in his rehab process. And now, lo and behold, we're days out from week 1, and we might have a Christian Benford situation on our hands in that we don't know if White can play. And you need someone starting opposite Christian Benford, and it could end up being this rookie over a Jamarcus Ingram or some of these other guys on the roster. And, I'm glad he's relaxed now. In the moment, going against Lamar in that attack can be much different, much more difficult. But he did have some big game experience in college. It's not like he was playing against lower level competition all the time, which, don't get me wrong, Benford did that, and he's a star in the NFL now coming out of Villanova. But this is a guy that has a lot of big moments and big games under his belt from his time in college. So maybe this is something where, I'm used to playing the best of the best at the college level a few times per year, and this isn't going to phase him. And if so, good for him. It'll be interesting to see, though, how the Ravens attack him if that ends up being the case on Sunday night.
I also think the Bills can maybe potentially do something where they do mix and match and see what works. I'll be interested in this game to see how much they go into their dime package, especially without Isaiah Likely. If they're not going as heavy on the other side, do the Bills decide to roll out a Cam Lewis in that spot, a Jamarcus Ingram? Obviously, he played there in recent years. I like the Lewis idea maybe a little bit more, especially now that it feels like Ingram's settled in as that kind of depth boundary cornerback option. And listen, if it's not going well for Dorian Strong, it could be a situation where you decide to pivot and throw Jamarcus Ingram out there. There's a lot of different options for Bobby Babich, who we'll hear from tomorrow before practice. A lot of juggling parts. And listen, you also have to place a lot of faith in a young player that they're ready for this kind of situation. But he must be doing things in the meeting room that gives them that kind of confidence.
And it's, what's interesting to me is Bobby Babich specifically is in such a tough spot in this game, in my opinion. Most teams that you go against in the NFL, you can zero in on either the pass or the run in terms of what are you going to try to stop. In the regular season, the Bills, it felt like weren't prioritizing stopping the run, and Henry was able to run all over him. In the playoffs, it almost feels like they sold out the run, or sold out to stop the run, which worked, but then it allowed Lamar to throw, which he almost brought the Ravens back into the game. In this game, whether those injuries on offense with Likely and Ricard, whether they're in or out, in the case of Ricard, I don't know if the Bills can still try to sell out the run or if they can play more lenient on the back end. It's tough for him, regardless of who they have, who the Ravens have. Most weeks you can go in and say, okay, we're going against the Chiefs. We have to stop Patrick Mahomes. And if Isaiah Pacheco beats us, so be it. This is a game where you have Hall of Famer and Derrick Henry first ballot, another Hall of Famer and Lamar Jackson down the road. So it's going to be interesting to see what he comes up with and how he does pivot in game if something is not working.
I see a comment in here asking about the cap space, and I want to get into this a little bit because I think a lot of Bills fans saw the restructure with Deion Dawkins, which freed up about $8 million around that number of cap space. Problem is the Bills were about $6 million over the cap. So this basically brings them back to even a little bit more than that, maybe a little bit million and change in cap space.
1.5, I think. Yeah.
1.5. So it's not really enough to make a significant move. And honestly, that just gives you a little bit of operable wiggle room to make, several different maneuvers over the course of the season with practice squad call-ups and maybe if the Bills go out and sign somebody on the free agent market, if that might adjust the top 51 at all. I don't foresee a big-time swing coming or, I know a lot of people want them to do something at safety. I don't think that that's coming right now. It would definitely take another restructure to make any kind of significant move at this stage with where the Bills are at with the cap.
Yeah, there's definitely no significant move happening after this Deion Dawkins restructure. It was just to get them on the right side of the salary cap after being over. So that's all it is at this point. They'd have to pull a few more levers if they wanted to do anything significant. There is the adjustment of the top 51, as you mentioned. So I know a lot of fans are clamoring still for a Jabril Peppers or help elsewhere, but the Bills don't have a lot of money right now to make that work. Obviously, players can come in and sign to the vet minimum, but even that is, could put the Bills back on the wrong side of things.
Did you see our buddy Kyle over there, Banged Up Bills, was going through the images that the Bills put up on social media, and one of the pictures is of Dan Feeney, depth offensive line in a number 42 jersey, which apparently is mimicking Patrick Ricard, which now I have to pull him aside tomorrow and ask him how he is managing that role on the scout team this week, if that ends up being the case. But listen, Sean McDermott has done this in the past. I mean, go back to Lamar Jackson early on in his career when he used Ray McLeod at one point. I think they used Isaiah McKenzie at one point on the scout team. Like, they get creative with giving the defense the kind of looks that they need to prepare for what I think is one of the most unique challenges going up against an offense in the league. And, it's also going to be, somebody said trial by fire in the comments. TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, they're going to have big roles this week. And Sean, gave a little buffer by saying, how many times does a rookie player in a college setting get a chance to go up against a 250-pound athletic freak running back and somebody with the skill set of a Lamar Jackson at the college level? It's going to be almost a new endeavor for both of those guys. The Bills have some challenges on their hands going up against this Ravens offense.
Yeah, 100%. Both guys could have their welcome to the NFL type moments in week one. And, it wouldn't be their fault because, as McDermott mentioned, you're talking about a special type of athlete, Lamar Jackson. You're talking about a unicorn of a running back in that age has not really done anything to limit the effectiveness of Derrick Henry. He is still a powerful running back that can take you down with a stiff arm if you don't, go low to try to bring him down. And he still has that extra gear, which is unbelievable to me. You saw it last year against the Bills and some of these teams where a guy that big at the running back position shouldn't move the way that he does, especially at his age, and yet he still does.
Thank you so much for watching here on this Wednesday evening. The Staple Show, first one of the new Bills season, is always a fun one. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe on YouTube. This Saturday night, if you're getting ready this weekend for the big game, maybe you're going out to the stadium, maybe you're hosting a big party, make sure you make Shout a part of your Saturday night. Head out to Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway. Wingnuts Bar and Grill. It's been a while, Ryan. We haven't been there in a while. We did a couple at the airport. Obviously, did our show at Dorado in Rochester. So it's going to be good to feel like we're back for a home game ahead of the Bills home game on Saturday night. Shout live. Come on out. We'll get you on the show. Talk about some Bills fans, hot takes, whatever you want to do. Talk about the Ravens. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, in season, the atmosphere at these shows are always great. But for week one, primetime matchup against the Ravens on Sunday night, I have high expectations, Bills Mafia. So join us at Wingnuts. Come on the show. Share your thoughts. We're looking forward to seeing you out there.
Where do you want to go next?
You know what? Let's put a bow on Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks wrapped up last night. I guess I wanted like an overview for you. I came away disappointed, Matt. It wasn't, and this is, coming from watching the origin of Hard Knocks for many, many years ago, and some of the storylines, some of the intrigue to it. This just felt like it was lacking all of that this year. And kudos to the Bills for having a great culture, not having a lot of drama. But to me, even if you were a Bills fan, I don't know if you could come away satisfied after those 5 episodes.
Yeah, I just felt like it did a good job of letting you peek through the window, but it never felt like anybody was invited into the house. You know what I mean? And
I like that.
And that's okay. And it's the Bills' prerogative. I think they had a little bit more editorial control than most teams in most years with the changing of the rules and wanting to get more of the better teams involved in the project. But it felt a little disingenuous at times. I mean, to not have any of the Tre'Davious White injury chronicled, that was a huge storyline that week.
Right.
And, Sean was upfront about it. He said he didn't want anybody in the room when they were, having those hard conversations around cut time. And I get that. Where was Keon Coleman? Like,
Deion Dawkins was going to mention it. Yeah.
Deion Dawkins was on the first episode, and I felt like we kind of missed him the rest of the way. And that's not to say that I didn't really enjoy the Jimmy Charlo story. Joe Andreessen featured, even Zach Davidson, I thought had a compelling little angle there. But for the most part, I think you come away from it getting a 30,000-foot view at the team, and it didn't feel like we got to go inside the walls very much, which I think was probably by the design on the Bills' end.
Yeah, and Keon's agent, Paul, did say something on social media along the lines of, Keon's focused on football. Wasn't too worried about the cameras, anything like that. But if you're HBO, you want as many entertaining players as you can get. And he's an entertaining guy. He's very personable. He's someone that I thought would have been good to be featured on the show. And, this past week, not the final episode of the week before that, they focused in on players that, for the most part, you sat there and said, well, they're not making the final roster. So it was, interesting because they didn't go for a star power a lot of the times. It was some of the underdog stories, stuff like that. It just felt like there was a lot of meat left on the bone.
I was just trying to pretend to be frozen. Did I get you?
You were moving. That's the problem. I'm like, man, these people listening to the podcast are going to have this awkward silence now.
So to give everybody that's listening and not watching, I just try to pretend to be frozen because every time I actually am frozen or get kicked out of the feed, I don't get to actually see how you react in the moment. So I just wanted to kind of put you on your toes a little bit.
Yeah.
You had a little dad joke today. Do you want to unveil it on the pod?
The eyes. Oh yeah, I like that one. That was
Go ahead.
okay. Well,
So first of all, what was the news?
Well,
Isaiah
it
Likely.
was about Isaiah Likely. It was the Ian Rappaport report saying not expected to play. So I went on and I quote tweeted and I said, more like Isaiah unlikely in week 1. Am I right? Yeah, that was good.
All right. So we're going to put Ryan in timeout for a second. I wanted him to say the dad joke just so I can do that. It felt really good. I feel like we're not back until we have one dad joke timeout for Ryan to
I
start the
saw you.
season.
I saw
So,
you ready to like press with the trigger button there. I
yeah,
knew
I
it was
can't sneak
happening.
up on you anymore. You knew it was coming.
I knew.
All right, good
I was
stuff.
ready.
All right. The last thing I want to get into is the Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
Getting back together with the Buffalo Bills. It's a little complicated because he's not ready to play football yet. Like that's the big part of it. Sean talked about it today at his press conference. So the procedural part of this is the Bills sign Gabe Davis to the practice squad today. He's injured, right? So to do that, they had already had all of their 6 veteran spots taken on the practice squad. They had to release Jordan Poyer for a minute, like one of those parking lot handshake deals. He goes out in the parking lot, figuratively, and the Bills signed Gabe Davis, put him on injured reserve on the practice squad. He'll be out for at least 4 weeks. He can't participate in practice, whatever. He'll rehab with the team and all those kinds of things. Once they put him on IR, they bring Jordan Poyer back onto the practice squad. So now everybody's under contract and in their proper spots. There was, as expected, some reaction to the Gabe Davis signing. But for me, Ryan, it falls directly in the same bucket as Jordan Phillips, as Jordan Poyer, as guys that know the culture here, the systems here, can probably be somebody that you can lean on in a pinch. And for a guy like Gabe Davis, who's been injured over the course of his career, year after year, what is the harm in putting him on the practice squad, letting him get 100%, and then maybe deploying him if you need him for a very short stint at the end of the season for a playoff run? Like, to me, I get really excited about that, knowing how the Bills have been banged up at the position in the past. To have somebody in waiting, getting them up to full speed and full health, I don't have a huge problem with that addition.
I don't either, just because, the only thing that worried me is at some point he could get elevated to the main roster and take someone else's spot. But in this scenario, the way it's played out, he's going to need some time to rehab. By the time by the time he's healthy, the Bills might already have another injury or two at the wide receiver position. And at that point, he's replacing someone that's not at 100% or that might be missing some time anyways. So you're not going to find better options out there on a practice squad, on the free agent market in season, than a Gabe Davis, who has come in here, shown knowledge of the system, made big plays throughout his career. So, at first, a little indifferent to the idea. Wasn't sure I loved it. But as time has gone on here and you really think about it, he gets a chance to get back to 100%. The Bills can get him up to speed. He can sit in on, meetings, whatever the case may be, in case there's some new things he needs to get used to with Joe Brady's system. And then if an injury pops up when he's healthy, he can get signed or even elevated on a game or two basis from the practice squad and go from there.
Also, a lot of questions on the Dwayne Carter update. Obviously, he tore his Achilles. The Bills are in no rush to figure out that roster spot. They could do a couple of different things. Like if they're bringing somebody onto the roster and they need him for Sunday against the Ravens, sure, you make that move and you put Dwayne Carter on IR. But if their plans aren't changing and they're not signing anybody, maybe they don't have the cap space to, or maybe they don't. I think that there's a provision that for vested veterans, like if you were to sign them to the 53-man roster, but off the practice squad before week 1, it locks in some part of their contract. And so I think that waiting makes more sense, because even if there's somebody that you really want on the 53 come game time on Sunday, you could elevate them out the practice squad. You don't have to make that move. So I don't anticipate them in any kind of rush to figure out that Dwayne Carter spot, and he could stay on the roster and the Bills can have 52 and go into the Ravens game and figure it out after the fact.
Yeah, I think elevating, Zion Logue from the practice squad for that week is very likely. Time in this, the system, he's been with the team all training camp, preseason with the team last year as well. So he'd be ready in that 1-game pinch. And then after, you don't have to worry about the guaranteed contracts. Then you can make the procedural move of moving Dwayne Carter to the IR, and then signing one of those two to the main roster, not guaranteeing their 50, their contract.
Look what you've done, you little jerk. What movie is that from?
Home Alone. Come on.
Okay, good job.
Come
Trader Clem, first of all, said Ryan never stopped with the dad jokes. Matt secretly loves them. And then he dropped this bomb. Go ahead, Ryan. You read it for effect.
Would you say it's not Dwayne they want to do things?
Oh my gosh. Trader Clem, if I had you on picture right now, you'd be booted right off to the side for a mini timeout. That was a good dad joke, though.
That was. I like that a lot.
Sorry, I cut you off. Finish your
No,
thought.
you're good. You're good. So I would anticipate just an elevation of Zion Logue, and then after week 1, the Bills can reassess.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. We're coming back tomorrow. I have a conversation with Phoebe Schechter. She is an NFL analyst over in the UK. She'll be in town for the Miami Dolphins week, so maybe we're trying to put something together for then. She's great. She spent a couple years with the Bills as a coaching intern. Now she's breaking down the entire league over in the UK with that bubbling fan base, NFL fan base over there. So that conversation, I had it with her this week. That'll air tomorrow. And then we'll be back on Friday with the preview show. I think how we're going to do it, Ryan, because we have our official preview show on Saturday. I'm going to link up with another Baltimore Ravens reporter, hopefully on Friday for a very mini episode on Friday, probably before we get the final injury report, and then we'll get to that on Saturday. So I wasn't lying. We're doing an episode every single day of this week. Shout is back in a big way, man.
That's right. Stay locked in, Bills fans. Watch live on YouTube, Facebook, X, but then also listen on your favorite podcast platform.
All right, that'll do it for today. See you tomorrow, everybody. Take care.